Yo. Mama Kush in the garden, man, watch it grow. Got the green thumbs, teaching love to the show. Seed bunnies rolling up, got the papers right. In this homegrown community, we ignite the light. Join us on the gram, see the magic unfold. Together we rise, let the stories be told. Homegrown, we united, rolling through the night. Community lifted, everything feels so right. Join us for the ride, knowledge flows like a stream. In the heart of cannabis, we're living the dream. Mr. Gannick spitting wisdom, knowledge so deep. Papa Kush on the beats, grooving to a new leap. Every Wednesday and Friday, let's gather the crowd. Live on YouTube, yeah, we're making you proud. From the roots to the tips, we're sharing the vibe. In this homegrown family, we'll forever thrive. Homegrown, reunited, rolling through the night. Community lifted, everything feels so right. Join us for the ride, knowledge flows like a stream. In the heart of cannabis, we're living the dream. From the roots to the tips, we're sharing the vibe. In this homegrown.
Hi, happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday.
Oh my goodness. Oh, we have a night tonight. How is everybody doing tonight?
Doing very good.
Good.
I'm excited for tonight. It's gonna be a fun conversation.
Yes, it will be. Kids went back to school. Yep. Everybody's getting back into a routine.
Yeah, second day.
Nice.
It's weird. Hers are on second day. Today was first day for us.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they had a PD day yesterday.
Of course, because they need a break after summer vacation.
Well, it's 2 months off. You gotta ease in nice and slow.
Ease back into it. I know.
You don't want to hurt yourself.
Exactly. The first week of going back to school, it's just chaos. Nobody's settled. Like, everybody's trying to get into a routine. Like, when I was younger, it was like school started. That's it. There's no easing back and shuffling and doing this. Their stuff was figured out at the beginning.
Homework on day one.
Maybe one or two kids get shuffled, but it seems like the whole week is everybody's getting shuffled. Move in the house and be shot or cook chickens. Welcome. I don't know why
that's our people.
Yes. So just a reminder, yes, every Wednesday, you could also find our Wednesday interviews over on HGTC podcast under Spotify. You could also find us on IG under Homegrow the Community Official, under Sea Bunny Grows, Mr. Gannick's, Papa underscore Kush underscore 420, and Mama Kush.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
that's where you get to see all the juicy stuff is on Instagram.
That's right. That's right. where we post and we're most active. I haven't been active. I've got to get back into my routine of getting back active on Instagram again.
I don't know. I got a feeling that there's something coming up in the future that you're going to be making you're going to be doing a lot of posting, I believe.
Yes, everybody stay tuned because Mama and Papa are going to the U.S. We're going to LA. We leave on Friday. Oh my goodness, it's coming so
exciting.
Quickly. So quickly. So yes. We're leaving Friday, so that's going to be a big travel day for us. And then we're going to hang out with everybody at the party, the AC Infinity. Shout out to the AC Infinity crew. And we'll be hanging out with them on Saturday. Oh, my goodness. Macho Man will be there. Frankie's. Oh, boy. Excited.
Saul Bunyan, the whole stats crew.
Oh, Saul's going too? Oh, yay.
Yeah, Cannabis Luke will be there.
Yes, you're gonna have so much fun.
All kinds of
Cannabis Luke and I have already decided that we'll dip out back and blaze one together with the couples. We'll bring the spouses and we'll all blaze one together.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
It'll be fun.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so it's going to be super exciting. So stay tuned, watch my Instagram. I'm going to be super active on Instagram and possibly on the Home Grow channel. I don't know what what we have planned yet, because everything's just kind of been a little bit of a whirlwind, kind of getting everything wrapped up here. So stay tuned, everybody. We'll figure out what we're doing, but keep an eye out for social media because we'll be posting.
And with that being said, we've also have hit the 1,500. So that means that we will be doing a giveaway, not this Friday, but the Friday after.
That's right.
So whoever's been on.
Because I'm gone. Yeah. We're going to be gone. So we don't want to, I wouldn't want to miss it. I want the organic corn. Plus his shipping's a little slow up north up here. Yes. So he needs his organic corn onesie.
Yeah, so thank you to everyone who has participated, who's liked, who's shared, who's told their families, their mom, their dads, their friends. We appreciate
everybody that's made 5 accounts, maxed out their Google accounts for YouTube. We appreciate all of you.
All the sponsors as well for making this possible, for us being able to give back to the community.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
So
all right.
I can't believe you did it. That's so fun. Oh, amazing. Okay.
Yes.
Are we ready?
Yes.
I think we are ready for today's guest.
Yes.
Let's bring him on. Welcome.
Jason Ortiz.
Wow. You guys have the best animation and intro game in cannabis. Like,
yes.
Like that's got to be the most baller intro I've ever gotten.
Nice.
Thank you.
Like,
nice. So what you're saying is the next time we bring you back, we're gonna have to up the game a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I want intro music. I want it to be like a WWE intro, you know?
Okay.
Oh, we can do that.
All right.
We can do that.
We'll make that happen.
We know people,
Yeah.
PZ.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I'm super stoked to be here.
Absolutely. No, we're excited to have you here for sure.
Yes.
You were part of a few things out there that are very, very big, like on your mug right there, the Last Prisoner Project.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes. It's an amazing cause.
So for anybody that is unfamiliar with yourself, please give yourself a little bit of an introduction. Sure. Let everybody know who you are and why you want to come talk to us.
So my name is Jason Ortiz. I'm the Director of Strategic Initiatives for the Last Prisoner Project. And LPP, the Last Prisoner Project, is an organization that seeks to get folks who are currently incarcerated for cannabis crimes out of prison and reunited with their families. And so here in the States, we still have thousands of folks that are currently incarcerated for cannabis, including roughly 3,000 at the federal level and 40,000 at the state level. And so my job as Director of Strategic Initiatives is really the person that oversees the policy and political arm of the organization. And so my role is to expand eligibility for release through legislation. So if it was a state that maybe said you have to wait 10 years before you can get a pardon, we might introduce a bill to reduce that to 1 or 0, preferably. We also do things like pressure executive branch folks, so the governor and our president, right, to use their executive authority with pardons and commutations to let folks out of prison without having to pass a bill. Now, the full organization does provide a lot of direct support for people that are currently incarcerated, including financial support to their commissary, to their families, and grants when they get released, but also legal support to help them figure out the paperwork and make it through all the different parts of getting released and afterwards. And so we've been doing this for about 5 years. It was 2019 that LPP was founded. I just hit my 1-year anniversary actually last month. And so it's been a wild ride. Yeah, thank you. I was able to do a lot in that year. It's been a very interesting last year. And so yeah, and it's really, I wake up every day and get to work to get people out of prison that are in there for cannabis crimes. Like, it is a joy to do the work. It can be difficult because politics is, a swamp, and it's not exactly easy or, fun all the time to deal with folks that are very clearly not in support of what we're doing, but it is definitely something that I enjoy doing and, wake up every day to be able to do that. And so, Yeah, and so personally though, I got arrested for cannabis possession when I was 16, and so that was in the year 2000. I was a sophomore. Sophomore. I'm forgetting even the terms, right? Second year sophomore in high school, and I was walking on the way to school. Got arrested with some friends, and as soon as they stepped foot on campus, they surrounded us with these security guards. And it was a very like violent experience. So we didn't really understand like why they were being like so mean. Like I got in trouble before, but nobody like surrounded us like that. And then they brought us into this room. When I was there, they called the police. The police came in and started to cuff me. And once somebody tries to put chains on you and like drag you out of school, the policy becomes a very different thing, right? And so like I freaked out in the moment. But luckily, I was able to go to college, eventually join an organization called Students for Sensible Drug Policy, SSDP, of which there is a Canadian chapter. And that work kind of showed me how to turn my policy and my anger into like actual political change and like really know how to mobilize folks. I would go on to eventually become the executive director of that organization. We're actually in the middle of COVID, which is a pretty brutal time to become a nonprofit executive director. I work at SSDP where we were protesting Biden a couple of years ago to force him to use his power of the pardon. That got me connected with LPP. It was a joint effort. And then I met them and the folks were like, hey, you should join the team full time. And I was like, absolutely, I'd love to do it. And that's how cool. I got to where I am today.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you had an experience that kind of pushed you into like the activism side of things, and I guess that would be that would be the start of it at least. Anyways, yeah, that's cool.
You know, I would
Not
say
cool
that
you got arrested.
That's what made me angry and motivated, right? But it wasn't until college when I really started to be an organizer. So I actually did like eventually major in public and community engagement, which was an individualized major that we kind of made up, but was much more focused on local politics and local organizing. So in college, most of poli-sci is about like international wars and treaties and all of this, right? It wasn't like, how do I organize a 7-person group to make something happen? And so we created that to be able to do that.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Thank you.
Impressive. You know, to be able to take like such a negative experience, like you said, they were mean, they were rough, they were, you know, they were chaining you up, essentially.
Love it.
I apologize. Co-papa.
Yeah, and it
running the background, and he has control of things. That
does he have sound effects? Can he like bullhorn or like?
Oh, I'm sure he can.
Air horn.
I was gonna say let's not give him ideas.
You need to drop something. Exactly. Right on. All right. They're working.
Pop up as the night goes on.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, you know, negative experience and move that over like that's such an incredible feat, because a lot of young kids don't do that, and they continue down a bad path. So what motivated, like what was the I don't know, the person or the group that got you to go, oh, okay, this is how I need to direct my life?
Definitely SSDP, I'll say. But in high school, it was like in the middle of the winter too. So I lost like my whole 10th grade year. And so I was at home, the internet was around. And so I was able to actually spend a lot of time doing my own research. And so instead of being in school and dealing with all that, and then I had to do tutoring after school. So I never got incarcerated, but I'd have to go to court like 1,000 times and spend tens of thousands of dollars on legal fees. But I got 8 hours a day to like research whatever I wanted. And I'll say it did not stop me from smoking weed. Like I was smoking a lot of weed the whole time. Like they sent me home to be by myself for a year, right?
Yeah.
Like, so it was brutal. And that was when I became more like self-motivated and like being able to do everything on my own. Like I kind of had to. I was alone most of the time. And that then became how I got really good at research and policy and learning the laws and the details and all that. But it was Students for Sensible Drug Policy in college that said, this is how you write legislation. This is how you pass a law. This is how you run for office. This is how you do a protest, right? Like all of those things. And SSDP is an organization that has anywhere from like 50 to 80 chapters across the country of student organizing. And so when I met, it was through smoking, actually, a friend of mine was like, you really need to join SSDP. You seem like the type that would like that. And so I joined. I was like, oh, okay, like here's where all the cool kids are. And it was also like the best social environment, right? Because like these are folks that care about changing the government and also partying, right? Because SSDP was all drugs. It wasn't even just weed. It was anyone that was impacted by a drug crime, we try to help them. SSDP first got started with the Pell Grant prohibition in the Higher Education Act's federal aid elimination penalty, which is the law that said if you get arrested, you can't get financial aid. And so SSDP was created in 1990 specifically to change that law, which we did, and it doesn't exist anymore, but has continued on after that. And so it wasn't just like they literally told me how to do it. It was watching all of the other activists in SSDP and like seeing what we do on other campuses, see what the alumni are doing. That I was like, oh, this is like a whole career path. Like I had no idea. Eventually ran for the national board and got elected to the national board, and the rest is history.
That's amazing. And you've spoken places like the White House before, I believe, haven't you?
Well, I've spoken at the White House, like literally like yelling at the White House, right? I wasn't inside the White House, but we did. Yep. So this past April, this is probably like, honestly, like of all the things I've ever done, maybe legalization in Connecticut is a bigger deal, but organizing the 420 Unity Day of Action this past April was the biggest, coolest thing that I've ever done. And in that, the Unity Coalition was a coalition of roughly 30 groups represented from progressive lefty organizations, which are part of the Marijuana Justice Coalition that are 99% Democrat. Then there's the Cannabis Freedom Alliance, which has a number of organizations that are 99% Republican, and then a wing of a number of industry groups. And so we had like the National Cannabis Industry Association, the Minority Cannabis Industry Association, the Indigenous Peoples Industry Association. And so all these different groups came together to form the Unity Coalition, saying the only thing that advances all of our missions simultaneously is full legalization. And my argument was that that's what we should be demanding at all times, every day, right? They can water it down from there, right? But
go big first, and then absolutely.
And here in the States, we're fighting over things like safe banking, which is going to protect the cannabis businesses to be able to have legal banking access, which I support that. The public does not care, right? Like we're not going to get 200 plus Congress people to vote yes on that, not because they oppose it. Right? It's just not a priority. And so we were losing a lot of steam in just talking about stuff that nobody cares about, right? Rather than say full legalization and put safe banking in full legalization, right? That is what I think is the better strategy. But that's only a better strategy if we get the people power out, right? We need to be able to actually bring people together. So we organized a National Day of Action in DC. It was comprised of 3 main parts: a press conference on Capitol Hill, a lobby day that covered roughly 90% of the offices were visited by our people, and then a vigil in front of the White House to remind everyone about the folks that are currently incarcerated. Also that President Biden himself interviewed all of them if he wanted to with the stroke of a pen. So those 3 events were different, right? Like in what they were doing and who participated, but the one in front of the White House was the most powerful and meaningful because we had a huge stage, hundreds of people. There were family members of folks that were incarcerated. They were able to literally yell at the White House, right? And like say, please let my family out. We got to have folks that have been organizing for a long time. So they've been doing this since the 60s, you know? And then we kind of ended on the vigil part, which was us lighting each other's candles, right? And so the act of one person inspiring and empowering another person, right? Like I'm going to take my time and my candle, I'm going to light your candle, right? And that camaraderie among each other. And like, that's what really the movement needed, was some heartfelt, hey, we want you to be part of this movement. Please join us. There's space for you here. Everybody's welcome. There's old folks, black and brown and white and everything in between, right? And so that was what I felt was most important because we were missing it the most. Right. Prior to that, it was very dry, very business focused, very industrial priorities. Right. And we lost the heart of the movement, which is people love the plant. We love each other. We love other people that love the plant. And a lot of us are currently getting locked up for that love. Right. And so we had to bring some of that heart back to the movement. And of course, I thought the pictures were going to be really gorgeous. Right. And they were.
Of course.
Yes. And so, of course, the promo after, it was like, oh, it's so beautiful. It's amazing. And then all the press we got, right, was gorgeous. So you had people that, you know, her husband or son or is currently incarcerated in front of the White House with the candles, and we had these white flowers. And so we had to make something beautiful, I thought. And, you know, it's very different organizing something beautiful versus like an angry protest. And I could feel the difference there, right? Like as we were actually doing it. And I think it's just important to know that there's lots of ways people can organize. There's lots of actions out there. It doesn't have to always be, signs and megaphones. Because I actually felt it was more powerful. And then lastly, I'll say the other reason it was really different, it was a night protest, right? So like having things in the evening where there's not like as much stuff going around, it's dark out, right? We're lighting candles. And so the idea of us gathering at night, I think was also special. And so, so overall it was a great success. We did everything we could. And now we're getting ready for next year to go bigger, badder, and better.
Oh, that's amazing.
Do you ever get nervous having to go up against these organizations, having to speak to such big crowds, things like that?
Every single time.
How do you handle that?
Every single time. Yeah. So this one, I was almost so nervous about all the logistics that I didn't get as nervous about me speaking, because I was also partially emceeing. So one of the biggest issues I know with public speaking is the tension right before you have to speak is so intense. So I'll give an example of the most terrifying public speaking I ever had to do. So we helped Governor Wes Moore of Maryland issue 175,000 pardons at once. And that was the biggest thing we've ever done. Now, these were not letting anybody out of prison, because this is where it gets tricky, right? We can get folks to do certain things and it sounds great. 0 people got let out of that, or 0 people got let out of Biden's pardons. That being said, these are charges that were on Marylanders' records. And so instead of expunging them one at a time, we were able to do it, 175,000 charges at once. So they're like, hey, do you want to go to the bill signing? And I was like, sure, I would love to go to the bill signing. That's amazing. And so then the me going to the bill signing becomes well, can you speak at the bill signing? I'm like, sure, well, how can that be? Right? And so I really did not realize what I was getting myself into. And I get to the governor's, City Hall, the State House, right? We go in there, everything's really cool. And then we get brought into this other room and I'm ready there. And then they open the door and there's all these people waiting to come shake his hand. But they had me next to him, right? 2 people over. And I was like, wait a minute, what are we doing right now? People's hands before this guy, right? And so it was just okay, this is a bigger deal than I thought. And I'll come back to a different story about the pen in a minute. But as that ended, we start walking into the room where he's actually going to do the signing. And there are literally 100 cameras. There was so many people with cameras, and then in the front are all these clearly important people, many of who probably should have been up there more than me, right? Our organization did the work. And shout out to Adrian Rocha, who's our policy manager. He really made that happen with a policy memo. We can talk about how that happened because that was wild. But when I walked into that room, I almost lost myself in that moment. Yeah. The speaking order was the governor, the attorney general, then me, and then the dean of the University of Maryland Law School, right? And I was just what is happening right now? I did not, I had a speech prepared, but it was just the pressure. So Wes Moore is a fantastic public speaker. I don't know if you've ever had a chance to hear him. He's really good. And so, imagine standing next to a young Obama and you have to follow him up. Right. And so that's how it felt, because I'm hearing him say this and he's thanking us and all this stuff. And just that 10 minutes between when he started and when it was my turn to speak were the most terrifying 10 minutes of my life. So I have to be able to go and immediately start. And I came in with a joke. Right. And so I was able to give people a laugh right away. And that really helped. And I gave my speech. I did miss a few parts, but I will say, I had done bigger rooms. I've done interviews on TV. I've done all kinds of big public speaking. The crowd at the White House was way bigger. I was way less nervous. But that was the cameras, right? And this is going to go to the country. And it did. It was on all the major news. We were on CNN, ABC, blah, blah, blah. And I actually got to speak on democracy now after that. So, but that's just standing there and having to look like everything is fantastic. And I'm so excited to do this. And the best I can do is not fuck up, right? And so, but I did it and I survived and it went really well. And it was huge for our organization. And so I think at this point, I've done it enough times, but I also understand why we have to do it, and I will always take that opportunity, even if it's super nerve-wracking.
Yeah,
very
so that's
important.
What pushes you forward.
Sure. Yeah, the cool thing about the job is I get to wake up and help everybody get out of prison. The pressure of the job is like, I need to wake up because people are sitting in prison. And if we don't do this job, like they will spend more time away from their families, right? It's like one of those things that we know if we are ineffective at what we do, it has a real impact. These folks are going to sit in there for a very long time. And so there is always that, like, you know, you can't rest too much, you know, political schedules make things a little bit tricky, but there is that. So for example, with Biden, right, we have literally 139 days before he leaves office that he can use his pardon authority to commute sentences of folks in prison. So that means if I take a day off, that's 138 days that we have Biden, you know, to be able to do this. And so there is that pressure that's very different, like speaking in public, right? But that's like at home, just like, oh my God, what am I going to do next? How do I escalate? How do I do something else that can be allowed?
I imagine that makes your time go by so quickly too. When you're looking at it that way, and you're like, I got 139 days to do this. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now I got 110 days to do this. I imagine it just, time goes by in a big hurry at that point.
It can definitely, like when 420 started to speed up, like, because the other thing is like I'm going to music festivals and stuff, or I'm like doing other things like in the process.
Yeah, you're trying to also live your life at the same time.
Right. Exactly. I have a beautiful daughter, you know, like I'm trying to grow my plants at home and make sure I eat well. And so like that, the time part of it is really fascinating because it fluctuates so much, right? Where sometimes it feels like it's going super fast and other times like it's crawling and I'm like, I just need it to be next Tuesday already because I can't do anything until this other event happens. And then, and I don't want to like just overdo it with work, right? Where it's just like, now I'm just filling every minute. But also half of the legislatures in the states like are January to May. So the difference in the first half of the year versus the second half of the year, like we do a year's worth of work in the first half of the year. And like, even when we went back and looked at our metrics for our team, like we crushed all of our metrics by April because 420 was so big. So I was like, well, what do we do now? I got to like invent entirely new campaigns just to do it, which you know, we did. That's actually exactly what we did. We invented new campaigns. But it's very hurry up and wait sometimes, right? Where you got to get there, got to do the thing, and like, okay, now it's in the in the representative's hands, and like, when are they going to get back to you? Maybe never, right? And so it can be tough.
Well, we do have a couple of questions from the community, if you don't mind, just taking a moment because I'm sure they're super curious. So Huey wanted to know, what state is the worst for incarcerations for cannabis?
Texas. And so it kind of depends on what you think by the word. Oh, so we're going to come out. There's 10. We did the top 10 state breakdown. And so I would tell folks that are listening, go watch the Last Prisoner Project's Instagram page and LinkedIn and Facebook. We don't do as much with Facebook recently, but we have the 10 states broken down because it also depends. So Texas has the most total arrests and incarcerations, right? But it's a ginormous state. Right. And so population wise, it's not the worst in that like individual people are more likely to get arrested. That would be Idaho, I believe. And so Idaho is smaller, right? But of the amount of arrests that they make, more of them are for weed. And so Idaho is actually trying to make it more illegal. So they're trying to pass laws that if you bring weed from a neighboring state that's legal, there's an extra charge for doing that. So not only do you get caught with whatever cannabis you have, it'll be like, and transporting across state lines and like all these other things. And so Texas is another one. Yep. And actually Pennsylvania was pretty high on the list, which was kind of surprising. And so check out our website. Like we definitely have all kinds of stuff. We also on our website, which is lastprisonerproject.org, have a 50 state breakdown where we rank all the states from A to F in their criminal justice policies. And so you'll probably be able to guess where most of them stand, right? But there's definitely a few there. That one is more focused on like reentry support and other things beyond like just arrests, but it all is listed and you'll see where folks got a 0 or got a 5. And that's also super helpful. It's our State of Cannabis Justice Report is on our website.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And I think on your website,
any surprising ones. North Carolina was pretty high. I think Pennsylvania was probably the most surprising. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And you guys also have the it's like the pen pal
so
program on there as well.
writing campaigns, right? And so like we write letters to folks that are currently incarcerated. It's one of the things that we do a lot with other groups too. Like, and so we'll have a joint event, say like Students for Sensible Drug Policy is a good example, right? Where they might host Learn About Last Prisoner Project and write a letter of support to somebody that's currently incarcerated, right? And that,
which is super cool.
Yeah, you know, because like the folks that are in there too, like they want to know about this stuff. They want to get involved. Like not all of them, right? But a lot of them come out and want to be part of the movement. And so Dante West, who you just scrolled past, who's on our staff, he's somebody that wrote himself like letters to the governor and like all these folks and got himself commuted with the help of LPP, right? And got 2 years, I believe it was, taken off of his time, and now works for us as one of our outreach coordinators. And so, yep, and that was our 420 day of action. That's Representative Ayanna Presley there. You can see I'm in the back with the blue suit. My good friend Nina is there with the orange, and Jessica Gonzalez from Supernova Women, like some amazing folks, right? And that, again, right, like we did that whole press conference for that picture. You know, like where you have a congresswoman stumping for us. So there's multiple Congress people and a senator were there with us that day, right? Robert Deals is another person, right? So we also do a significant amount of work with veterans. And so we work with the Veterans Cannabis Coalition and the Balanced Veterans Network, Dem and Republican respectively, to help veterans that are currently incarcerated. This was the State of Cannabis Justice report that I mentioned earlier. And so LPP does a lot of different things, and it has become the entity, the framing of the issue that is most appealing to the public, right? There's very few people that are like, no, I don't agree with what you guys are doing, right? Even folks that don't or don't like weed are still like, thank you for doing that, though. Like, that's ridiculous, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy that there's so many people taking up the space in the prisons over a plant.
And there's people making millions of dollars doing far less than what these folks did, right? So Evan Ruiz, who was incarcerated for 40 years, right, had a trafficking charge. A dispensary traffics way more than we could have hoped to do.
In a day.
Yeah,
in 1 day.
Right? Yeah. And yet 40 years, he's served 26 already. We're trying to help him get released. 14 more years after half of the states have it legal, right? Like, it's madness. And so a lot of these big sentences came out in the 90s, thanks to our current president, you know, President Biden, and a lot of his efforts there. And so that's why we believe that he has a particular responsibility to use his executive authority to let some of these folks out, since it is largely because of his rhetoric and his legislation that they're in there to begin with for that long. It's one thing to say, you know, they don't claim innocence, right? And so that's a bit of a different thing. This is that the punishment did not fit the crime. And now there are people investing billions, paying taxes with legal weed money, making contributions to elected officials with legal weed money, and folks are going to be locked up for trafficking. Like, it is such a blatant, you know, hypocrisy in American law that I think there's very few people, even Trump has come out in support of legalization, right? And so we're in a situation now where there's very few people opposed. The inertia and bureaucracy of the system is the big problem. And now, you know, that's when activists come in and escalate.
Yeah. Yeah, 40 years, man. I couldn't imagine. I'm 41.
Right, I'm 40, and I'm about to be 41. And like, think about that. That like, he's been in there for 26 years. He has a child that's 25 years old. Like, she was pregnant. His wife was pregnant when he got in trouble. Right, when he actually got incarcerated.
Lost her whole childhood. Oh my goodness.
I got to meet him and talk to him. Right, and it's like, this is crazy. And so I couldn't imagine, you know, spending 40 years in prison. Like, I literally like cannot fathom what that would even feel like.
Yeah.
And
For non-violence either.
Yeah. For traffic, for selling. Right. And I think that's another big part that I really appreciate about LP before I joined. We also covered trafficking and cultivation, right? And conspiracy charges and all these other charges, paraphernalia charges, right? All these other things that are not just simple possession. And so across the country, we'll see a lot of, you know, agreement on like, oh, well, if you got a gram, you shouldn't get locked up. Well, you got a plant, you shouldn't get locked up either, right? Yeah. And so it's definitely part of our job to like expand this idea of like what the drug dealer means, right? Because they use that not just to, you know, keep a lot of prohibition on the books, but also to make the claim that only these big corporate entities can possibly handle selling or growing cannabis. And so we can't let the regular person, this stuff is dangerous like plutonium. If you grow a plant, it could, you know, kill 1 million people. And so we have to have no lab. So it's interesting how the law will be used both against, you know, folks that are dealing with the criminal justice system, but also the markets, right? Like they're using it to manipulate the market as well. And where that wasn't like my passion, right? Like I support like what a lot of people are mad about, right, in the industry, because it is absurd and ridiculous. And like here in Connecticut, we have one of the worst business climates for cannabis businesses, where you literally just can't get a license no matter how much money you have. You can buy. Horse shit. That's what, when Connecticut passed the bill, that's how I felt.
we did have another.
You're kind of.
Yeah. I'm gonna
okay,
spark up some of my homegrown, some strawberry mystica.
Do you want to do that? Do you want to do that one question after we'll do the lightning round?
Yes, we can do that.
So do a lightning round, and it's 10 questions. The first answer that pops in your mind.
I was born for this. Yeah.
So Miss Bunny over here, she'll Alrighty.
Yes, so I will ask a question and in one word, just whatever comes to mind. So the first question is, what's the first thing you think about when you wake up?
Coffee.
That is more than fair.
I'll be honest on that one. Yeah.
If you were stranded on an island and could only pick one way of consumption, what would it be?
Joints. That one's super easy. Yeah, definitely.
I am a joint for sure.
I have a bong. I used to smoke blunts when I was in high school, but and I don't do a lot of dabs. Like I haven't done. I like the taste, but they're too much. Every time I go out and do a dab, I'm done. It like
it's over.
When it comes to growing, which do you prefer, auto or photo?
Photo.
If you could smoke with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
Dead or alive?
Yes.
Oh man. Man, there's so many strategies in my head that came up with like that. I was like Kamala Harris, right? Like I think that like I if I could really smoke with somebody alive right now, it might be her. Like it's not like it would be the most fun, but it'd be the most strategic use of that superpower. Yeah. If it was dead, it would be Pedro Aviso Campos. He was the leader of the Puerto Rican independence movement in Puerto Rico. That is like a very famous inspiration for the because that's aside from drug policy, Puerto Rican independence is one of my other main issues, and so I would love to smoke with him. If possible.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Hot or cold?
Hot.
Indoor or out?
Indoor.
Organic or synthetic?
I'm gonna say synthetic. I do use salts on my plants, and so like if I were to
synthetic.
Yeah.
It's a pretty 50-50. That's a 50-50 answer, really, honestly.
Yeah. Just stronger. Like a lot of it is the potency. I've done both, but like I do use a lot of salts.
Who would you rather smoke with, Cheech or Chong?
Chong, definitely. Cheech was a cop on TV.
That's right.
He's dead to me. Or Chong got arrested for a bomb company. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And the last one, weekday or weekend?
Weekend.
For sure.
Of course. Like, yeah, weekdays are cool and all, I guess, but
That's where the fun is. It's on the weekend.
Yeah.
Yes.
We actually
you said you were a home grower as well.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just say this weekend coming up, shout out to Sal Peasy in Connecticut. They actually have a blunt rolling, or not just a rolling competition of all kinds. And so I'll be having a good time hanging out there to see the best of the best of Connecticut. But yeah, so I've been growing for probably about 10 years now, more or less. Like, was definitely somebody that smoked a lot in college, right? And it was very expensive, and there was not a lot of access at the time. It was in 2008, 2012 was when I was at UConn. And so after I got out, it was just very like, I can't with all these really stony, put me on the couch strains. Right, like I'm too busy. I got shit to do, but I like smoking in the morning too. So, like, you asked me what the first thing is coffee. It is a very close second is weed, right? But I tend
my
to
joint is the first.
See, fascinating, right? Like, I get up,
Put your mouth as she's
coffee.
making her coffee.
Right? Exactly. Like I do all
I
that.
don't even do coffee.
Oh well, to
That's
each their
crazy
own,
to me.
but
Yeah.
right.
Why are
So-
you friends with her? No, I'm kidding.
they're so complementary in flavor and effect. It's such a happy marriage. Like I wish my
Absolutely.
parents had as happy of a marriage as weed and coffee have, right? But so I started growing because like I didn't like the type of weed that I was getting, and I had tried things like green crack and a lot of these other like very strong sativa, right? Like sativa cultivars nowadays, and so. When I found it, I was like, oh, this is what I'm looking for. And so eventually started to decide, I'm just going to grow my own. Started with a little 4x4 tent in my mom's basement. I know it sounds cliche, but it was literally, my mom had an extra house that was far away. And so I grew Blue Dream was the first strain I ever grew. It was horrible. Came out really bad. But then I started.
But you learned a lot.
Oh, I learned a lot. Oh, definitely. I learned a lot about condensation, about critters, right? And it was just like, clearly did not do it effectively. But also the basement was kind of a rough like spot. Like I didn't have fans and stuff. Like I didn't have anything, right? So once I learned about climate control, that changed things quite a bit. And then eventually I started to grow out at home. And that was when I could actually touch my plants every day, like water them every day and figure things out. And like, and shout out to AC Infinity. I think they're one of your sponsors, right? Like they've been clearing my tents for a decade now.
Yeah.
And so
They're amazing. They're amazing.
So they're running right now. And so that once I brought it into my home, I started to be able to meet growers and find folks that were like developing their own genetics, and people would give me seeds, and I was able to start ordering online. The first time I ever used Bitcoin was to buy weed seeds online. And so I learned about
Love it.
Yeah, because they would accept it, or you had to like write a paper check. I'm like, I'm not mailing a seed company a paper check. You guys are out of your mind, But like, I'll send a Bitcoin, And so then once I started to be like shopping for beans, like that it got a little addicting there for a while. I was like, oh, what is
It really
this? What
does.
is that? Yeah, it's like,
It
no matter how
really
many I had,
does.
I was like, oh, but there's a new exotic. I gotta get it. Like it's the best weed.
Yeah.
And so, and it was different. Like I didn't notice, like when I was paying for quality genetics, it was worth it every single time. And so like, that was really cool to see, not just like, it's just like decent enough to smoke, but that like, I started to prefer my weed to most of the weed on the street. Yeah. And that's when I really felt like a grower.
Yeah. Nice. What's the number one favorite strain you've grown so far up till now?
So Barney's Farm Red Dragon was one of my favorite strains that like in the beginning stages just like was so great for me. Bruce Banner has been another one that's been a pretty like staple. And there was this one from Soulfire Genetics. It was Phoenix Flame or something like that I thought was just like really amazing. And there was a whole fall there where I ran a bunch of Huckleberry strains that were just so purple, right? It was just so beautiful. But like, man, my like favorite, I'd have to say Red Dragon. Barney's Farm Red Dragon was definitely pretty nice. I did a lot of exotics where when runts was really popular, that was definitely a fun time. We're on like 18 different kinds of runts and mixed all kinds of things. That was very interesting.
I'm smoking a mac runts right now.
Hey, there you go. See? And it's just so juicy. Like, again, runts is also a bit, it's not as up as I want from like my daily smoke, but it just tastes so good. And like bringing it to a party, like it's just, people love it. And so I could tell right away, like, okay, that's a winner.
Yeah.
Oh,
Do you have anything?
Sorry, we did have another question that was pending.
Oh, sure.
So if you could bring that up from the community, please.
And I would say right now I have a strain going called Forevermore.
Ooh.
It sounds like I haven't tried it yet. A friend gave me the seeds and I'm really excited. So yes, actually, the Second Amendment. So this is a U.S. focus, of course, but so this one, like, don't quote me, but there has been good news in that there has been a court that decided you cannot deny somebody the right to the Second Amendment over cannabis because it's content, like it's discrimination based on your political views, more or less, right? And so that, though, hasn't made it all the way up to the Supreme Court or anything like that. But I would say there's reason to be hopeful and to push on that. There's been a bill that was called the Graham Act, I believe, that is the one that would have like affirmatively established this is you do not jeopardize your Second Amendment right for having a medical card. It's specifically about medical cards. And so, because there's no other registry of cannabis users like that. Like if you just shop adult use, you don't have a Second Amendment problem. So it is this really like dumb, bizarre part of the medical program. But the Republicans want to end it. Like of all the policies that do get traction with conservatives, like that is one of them. They were hopeful they were going to pass safe banking by adding the Graham Act and the HOPE Act, which is what we support, that would have funded expungements at the state level and put all three together and pass that. They're like, okay, cool. All right, like, yeah, do it. And nothing happens, right? And so it's like, okay, we've got the perfect package. The industry, the left and the right all want this to happen. And that's one of the crappy things about federal politics. It's not always if everybody agrees this gets passed, right? Because it's about getting up behind the agenda. And also, the parties don't necessarily want to give the other side any give. So, like, something that isn't political in that, like, it's not a win for one side doesn't happen, right? Like, whoever's in power only makes what happens, wins for their side, right? And so having this, like, mutual agreement on this hurts us in a lot of ways, right? And so that didn't pass, but that is hope, you know, that like this is an issue that is at least going in the right direction.
Nice. That's cool.
And I know. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, I know this again isn't for Canada, but there's been a whole lot of questions, and I know a lot of people have asked me and the three of us about the whole rescheduling thing in the U.S. A lot of people are scared about this whole reschedule nonsense that I've been hearing about. And I don't know a lot about it because
I know more than I ever wanted to know.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. That's why I'm bringing it up. So
So what is your opinion?
That have questions about this, and you'd be probably the best person that I know to ask.
Yeah. So I'll start with a big part of what we did on 420 was to push for full descheduling. So when I say fully legalized, the actual legal term that we use in a lot of the bills is descheduling. So the Controlled Substances Act, right, that was put in place by Nixon, makes, at this point, 5 schedules that are supposed to be based on the addictive potential of a particular drug, right? So drugs that are very high in addiction are in Schedule 1. Drugs that are very low in addiction are Schedule 5. Right? Alcohol and tobacco are not scheduled at all. And so most pharmaceuticals are in there somewhere, right? I shouldn't say most pharmaceuticals. I should say most of the Controlled Substances Act is comprised of these random pharmaceuticals, right? That have some sort of penalty, say like codeine that they were putting in drinks and people were getting high off the cough syrup, right? Like that's Schedule 4, I believe, right? It might be Schedule 3, you know, think about it. Ketamine is Schedule 3. But cannabis, so cocaine is also Schedule 1. So cannabis, heroin, and mushrooms are all in Schedule 1 as being the most restricted, most likely to have addictive potential, right? That has the highest penalties, et cetera, et cetera. So that's been in place since the 70s. So fast forward 50 years later of saying this is really dumb, President Biden is the first to admit, okay, we agree this is dumb. We're going to move it. And we're like, we don't want to move it. We're going to take it off the list. Right. And so we have to keep fighting for complete descheduling as the government is going to debate about rescheduling. The DEA doesn't like have to listen to the president, but the president could just fire the DEA chief and put in someone that would listen. Right. And so that being said, they can slow things down. They can take a long time. They did just schedule a hearing to hear from important folks on the medical issues related to cannabis. So the addictive potential for harm, the potential for healing, et cetera. And so that hearing is going to sort of like inform, hopefully, right, like whether they actually take the information to make a decision or they already made their decision. You know, only they know that, but that will inform they're making a decision of where to place it in the schedule. right? The president cannot, and this is again like legally debatable, but the president cannot just pull it off by himself. That has to happen with Congress. Although I will say with a strong caveat, there are lots of people that have made the legal argument for yes, he absolutely can, right? And so there has been a big debate, for example, of can Joe Biden legalize weed or not, right? And that is like, you will see it in court, right? Like that's how you're going to figure that out. Of course, he will say he can't, right? We say, yes, you do have the power to do that. So don't say that you can't do it and, you know, put the responsibility on Congress when you absolutely can. So I'm not a lawyer though, I'll say, right? And that's what the debate around rescheduling could be. And the problem with the whole conversation is that it doesn't, no matter where you put it on the schedule, it doesn't change most of the laws in the country, right? Like even if it was Schedule 5 or 4, it's still like cannot be sold at retail the same way, right? You need a pharmacist involved. You need different legal restrictions on patents and things like if there is an approved version of cannabis, right? Like there is Epidiolex, it's the TVEX and different things, right? But it's not the plant. This is the biggest thing. There are no plants, right, that are currently sold as medicine in our pharmaceutical system, right? There are isolated compounds that are used to treat a very specific ailment, right? And so there isn't like, if you take this leaf, right, that is a controlled thing that you can get at a pharmacy. They don't do that. So the idea of what to do with weed is confusing because it shouldn't be in any of these things because it's a whole plant. They could schedule THC, but then you'd have to schedule all 400 cannabinoids, right? Like, and that gets weird because like CBD is also in this other weird situation.
It puts it into a whole separate thing, right?
And that is that is in large part because of the Farm Bill. That is the most unscientific piece of cannabis legislation that's ever happened. As part of the Farm Bill that said, if it is 0.3% THC of the plant, then it's hemp, right? And so now we're in a situation where folks are growing low THC hemp to then extract it en masse, right, and turn it into other things. And so it is the dumbest.
That's where the whole THCA thing came in and blah blah blah. Well,
So, but THCA is a different thing. So this is where Delta 8, Delta 9, well, Delta 9, you know, is what we want, but Delta 10, Delta O, all of that was they were taking the CBD molecule and engineering it using a chemical process to turn into other types of THC, right? And so, but THCA is the THC molecule before we decarboxylate it, right? Before we burn it. Usually.
The whole thing with THCA really confused me because, like you're saying right now, the plant as it stands is THCA.
Yeah. But the law says 0.3% THC. And so if it hasn't been decarboxylated, so I took a nug, right, prior to decarboxylating it, it is more legal than if I decarb it.
Yes.
Because it's now THC. And the problem is the weight of THC that is in that bud is now a federal crime. Like, that's how stupid the laws are, right? Like the whole thing is so dumb. But the industry was smart, right? I think it's getting messy and dumb, but I get why they did this, right? And this is the thing, in California, it would list the amount of THCA on the package, right? So when you would see a package in California, a legal space, it would say 0.001% THC, 23.4% THCA, right? And the people that were writing the federal law, though, were not smokers, right? Or it did it on purpose, right? But they said, wait a minute, the law says THC. It doesn't turn into THC until they decide to do that at home. What they do with our product in their home is up to them. We can put on the label, not for smoking, right? Or not decarb this, right? Or whatever it is.
Also, it's like they used to do with seeds. This is a novelty item. Do not grow.
The same law legalized seeds. It's the same thing with clones and like seedlings, right? It's the same thing with a bunch of different parts of the plant. That's where it's like, it's such a, and this happened under Trump. In a lot of ways, it did legalize cannabis, right? It legalized a form of cannabis that is the dumbest way to legalize it, but it was the most far-reaching shift in cannabis policy, right? Because you could sell seeds, you could sell plants, right? And so that is dramatically different than full prohibition. Right, you know, and so that was definitely something that I think it wasn't like a surprise. Like people saw it coming. I was surprised how impactful it was. Like how much that 0.3% distinction legalized, even though it's so dumb, right? If you were like, hey, do you want to make half of the cannabis industry legal? Like, sure, right? Like that, like whatever I can do to make folks not go to jail for it, yes, right? And so if you would have said, like, do you want to make a distinction between like the leaf of the plant and the bud of the plant? Like, that's getting a little silly in the law, right? But if it means less people go to prison, then sure, right? Like, we ended up with this weird mess in the United States where hemp is different than marijuana. This is different than cannabis. And in some state laws, they would make the difference between cannabis and marijuana was that you bought it in a legal dispensary. And I was like, this is absurd, right? Like you're making a word, like, the economics of it, right? Like that's clearly.
So basically, if you buy it from me, it's okay.
It's
but if you get it somewhere else, it's not okay.
Marijuana.
So if you spend your money and pay tax on it and give the money to the government, then you're okay. Yes.
Right. Okay. It's like extortion. Right. And not only that, also they wanted to do where you had to have it in a corporate container, like a serious. So if I bought my bud in a little plastic thing and then put it in something else, I couldn't prove that I bought it. Then it would be a felony. Right. And it was like,
so if you get it in.
Yeah,
Get it in something like one of can't really see it.
Exactly. But if I have it in a joint, illegal. And so we beat that part of the law at least, But there are places where they tried that, and we had to fight it off. And so all the different state by state legal fights are wildly different, and the industries all ended up wildly different. And in part because different people prioritize different parts of the struggle, right? Like at the time, and so you have. Connecticut, where I live, we have home grow. New York has home grow, but New Jersey doesn't, right? And all three have, adult use markets. And then you go to Maryland, right, slightly down more, they have home grow, but Delaware doesn't. DC has medical, but they couldn't become fully legal because of Congress, so they just made everybody a medical patient, right? And so it was like, what are we doing? Like, this is literally, if you drive 4 hours, it's 5 different legal systems that you're gonna have to deal with.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So we do have a couple more questions.
Sure.
So certified old guy is asking. He says, I have felonies on my record for trafficking marijuana. I sold 2 quarter bags to a CI. Is there any sight in a pardon on a state level in Ohio?
CI is an informant, I'm going to guess, right?
I would imagine, yeah.
I'll say the answer is sort of the governor can pardon and commute any crime, right? And so that includes cannabis crimes. And so, yes, however, the governor of Ohio is not going to do that. He's somebody that is against it. He didn't want it to pass. He's been very reluctant to even allow the industry to happen, and it has happened and opened up. And so if you know somebody that is friends with the governor, in a technical sense, yes, he can do it. And most governors do some amount of pardons before they leave. And so it's very possible the resources and, footwork necessary to get an executive branch pardon is heavy, right? It can be very difficult. That being said, ask your state rep to do it for you, ask your state senator to do it for you, ask the governor directly, but your local representatives are there to help you navigate that part of the process. Right. And so if you have your paperwork together, rather than you as an individual having to do it, ask whoever is the highest ranking elected official in your community, likely your state senator, unless you have somebody that's Secretary of State living there or something. But that's how I would go about that.
Great. Oh, that's great information. Mm-hmm. So how do you feel about the cannabis farmers markets and cafes in California?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm going there soon.
No, I think it's good. The more we can normalize it, the better, right? It's more business opportunities, right? It is becoming what we want it to be, right? We want it to eventually be able to be like Napa Valley and, Amsterdam and different places that are just included and not, this weird out of the way thing, right? It should be something that is just part of the community as our, a cigar club or a winery or, whatever, folks want to consume these days.
They've made alcohol and tobacco so normal for everybody.
The only thing where it gets we have to maybe understand, we have to make some compromises, is that smoking inside is actually not allowed for other substances and not really allowed ever for anything anymore, right? That's not a weed specific law, that the Clean Air Act is what it is in the States, right?
Yeah.
But like when we think of cannabis lounges, like we want to smoke in the lounge, like we really do. And like I'm going to put all these couches in here, we're not going to smoke on it, right? And so that is something with the Clean Air Act, like you can't be doing that. There are definitely exceptions to the laws, like hookah bars, and so there are ways to do it. And I think, you know, I would say there are ways to structure the ventilation, right? And that it can still be good. The way it's likely to be getting around it is actually around like social clubs, like say your local Polish club or your Puerto Rican, group, organization, whatever it may be. That is like they sometimes have a bar or some like space that they can do that. That if you're a member, like a private member of a private organization, like what you do in there is up to you. You can't promote your stuff though. Like you can't be flagrant. And so, you can't be like, we're definitely breaking the law, because then you force the government to come in and say something. But, that's how I think it's likely to be. You'll pay your $50 a month to be able to walk in the door, and that's how you can smoke outside. But I like smoking outside better anyway.
Me too.
I like that.
Me too.
So we're coming up to the end of the hour now. I did have one question. Like, what are you looking forward to or not looking forward to with this new election coming up? Is there something that people should be looking out for? I'm Canadian, so this means nothing to me, but I know I have a lot of American listeners. So, and this is very important. So
yes. So, especially seeing Trump kind of make a bit of a flip-flop, right? But I do think if the Democrats win, right, specifically Kamala, but more so what happens in Congress, right, we could see the first government that is legitimately majority pro-legalization, right? And like she's made it clear that she would support it. Although Trump did say if a legalization bill came to him, he would likely sign it, right? And so, but we just don't have the Republicans supporting Congress. So as this happens, we need 60 votes in the Senate is really the difficult part. There's 50 plus 1 is the vice president, Democrats in the Senate right now. So we need 10 Republicans, right? So for me, our job as organizers is to go find those 10 Republicans out of 50, right? And so we don't need all the Republicans. I need 20% of the Republicans to join us on this to pass this bill. But I do think if this election goes and like Florida and other, like the momentum continues, we're going to be in the space where we can legitimately, actually, and I mean this with all seriousness, end the war on cannabis in a big way in the next few years. The public is already with us in the States. It's above 70%. We already have a lot of folks that are supporting from all across different aisles and different industries involved. It is a very mature industry. It's a mature movement, and we have the public with us, right? And reps are getting younger every day, although folks are dying in office these days. But the newer generation, every Congress that comes in is more pro-cannabis reform every single time, right? So if we get an executive branch that's willing to make some moves, like us, the people watching this podcast, y'all hosting this podcast, all the people in the United States watching, we get to be the ones to finally end the war on our community. And I do really believe that we're on the precipice of that. As long as we stay unified, we work together, right? Mobilize each other, do things at a national and local level. But I do think we're coming to the end of cannabis prohibition. So please get involved in everything we do. 420 is coming up, and next year, we got 8 months or whatever it is until we get there. Yeah. But that will be the time to really flex in the new era, right? What the new drug policy movement 2.0 is going to look like, and all of you will have the opportunity to help us build it.
Nice.
Oh, amazing.
That's amazing.
Thank you so much for your time. We didn't touch on a lot of the Last Prisoner project itself, but how can our audience help support these your cause and these prisoners that should not be there?
Yeah, definitely. So you can go to lastprisonerproject.org to get all the information about what we do and who we help, and how you can sign up for letter writing campaigns. The pen to write history is this pen that we've had different governors use to sign their pardon announcements. And you can ask, if you're in the States, ask your elected officials if they're willing to do a pardon on cannabis crimes, right? Definitely your governors. And some places have municipal pardons, although that's a little bit smaller. But also follow us on social media, share the stories of the folks that are currently incarcerated, let folks know that there are people at the federal level still locked up. Biden's pardons did not actually release anybody from prison. Next, I would say join us in DC, and next 420, we're going to have a great time making sure that everybody is involved and can actually talk to their elected officials. And then lastly, and most importantly, if you know anybody that's currently incarcerated for a cannabis crime, have them reach out to us. We can help make their time there shorter and easier. We have a whole program. There's all kinds of different ways you can qualify for different parts of our constituency. And that is something that we're never going to be able to get every single person out of prison unless everybody who knows somebody that's currently in prison helps us find them and get them out and stop putting people in, which we do with policy, right? So, but that is definitely something that if you're in the States, if you're in Ohio, if you're in Idaho, if you're in Texas, if you're in all of these states that are still really high arrests, tell us, Jason at lastprisonerproject.org, and I can point them in the right direction. Let's get them out, right? And that's how we're going to get these folks out to help us run the movement, right? To tell their stories. But even if it's a short amount of time, giving somebody a year back, a month back, could be their baby being born, their kids graduating from high school, folks getting accepted to college, a grandparent passing away, a parent needing to go to the hospital, right? Like even 1 month off of somebody's time could be the world to them. And so definitely look out to see if you know folks, if you heard anybody, have them get in touch with us so we can get them out.
Oh, fabulous.
And you are also on Instagram as well.
Oh yeah,
correct?
we're on all the things. Yeah, for sure.
All the things.
Well, thank you so much for spending your evening with us and just sharing the love of this beautiful plant. And you just keep fighting every day for this beautiful plant and these people that are.
Oh, I will. Here, I'm gonna get a quick picture from my fans. If that's cool.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Love it. Thank you. I always put up the fist because we got a fight ahead of us. I always remember it's going to be a fight. It's going to be fun, but it is going to be a fight, and we're ready to fight.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you.
We appreciate everything that you do.
Thank you. You too. Thank you for helping us get the word out. We appreciate it. See you in DC for next 420.
Maybe before
Absolutely,
420, we can have you back again.
I'd love to. For sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's a lot more that we could talk about for sure. So we'll be getting in touch. We'll definitely be in touch.
Yeah.
For sure.
I'm down.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you.
We'll talk Canadian policy next time. I'll have some questions for you guys next time.
Oh,
there you go. That'll be cool.
Oh yeah.
That'll be fun. Yeah.
There we go.
Awesome.
Nice.
All right. I'll take care. Keep up the good fight.
Yeah.
Happy growing.
Oh my goodness. I could spend.
Well, that was
What an amazing.
fantastic.
We
Yeah.
tried to get in as many questions as we could. Oh, that was amazing.
Tried to.
Yeah.
Bob was like, "Stop it. We're almost there." I'm like, "Okay."
I know. All right, you guys, let's wrap this up. We've got T2P next. Everybody's going to jump over and drop an HGTC. Let them know we sent you over there. And did we have anything else that we wanted to round out to the show with? Are we good?
I don't think so. I think we went through it all at the start.
All right. Everybody stay tuned for the Instagram on Friday, and we'll be busy. Papa and I will be busy. Cannabis Luke is in the house. I saw you in there, Astro. Yeah, I'm gonna get to meet everybody. Oh my goodness. Okay,
It's going to be so exciting.
Make sure to get over to lastprisonerproject.org. Buy your t-shirts.
Yes.
Write letters to inmates. Just do it. It's a great cause.
And you could also find him on Instagram under Jason Ortiz, and he's more than willing to answer any
Jason
questions,
J. Ortiz.
I'm sure.
Jason J. Ortiz.
Yeah.
And the Last Prisoner Project on Instagram as well. So yes. All right.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Happy growing. Happy Wednesday.
Mama Push is tending to her plants today. See bunnies in his zone in her mellow way. Mr. Danix with a smile always brings the cheer. Homegrown the community, we got no fear. Growing love in every pot. This is our happy spot. Mama Tushy, Bunny, Mr. Ganis too. In the heart of the grow, we're lifting spirits true. Cannabis, laughter, bringing dreams alive. Home grow the community where we all thrive. Under Canadian skies, we share our good vibes. Wednesday nights and Fridays where laughter thrives. From the gardens we learn, yeah, we share the light. Join us in the chill, everything feels so right. Together,
we can rise with sunshine in our eyes. Mama Kush, Seed Bunny, Mr. Organics too. In the heart of the grow, we're lifting spirits true. Cannabis laughter, bringing dreams alive.